Yeah, little bit late to the party, but yeah, you knew this was coming. All right, let's get this over with. Last week, SaltAgreppo, who if you didn't know is the current D2 rating GOAT, launched what would inevitably cause half of Twitter to add the word divinity to their list of blocked words. For pretty much the entire weekend, the community has been in a massive shouting match over whether or not there should be a nerf to the exotic weapon Divinity. Today, probably against my better judgment, we're going to go over the current situation in the community, and God help me, I'll share my thoughts on the matter, the meta, and the gun itself. Get ready, this should be an interesting one. But before we get going, big shout out to the sponsor of today's video, Dragon City. Dragon City is a free-to-play game where you can collect over 1,000 different dragons and build your own dragon empire. Like collecting and battling to become stronger, this game is literally right up your alley, buddy boy. Train them dragons, take them into battle in different PvP modes that let you fight other dragon masters. You can even breed 2 dragons to hatch new ones, raise and evolve your very own army. But wait, there's more. Your favorite characters from The Walking Dead are now coming alive in Dragon City. Download the game and check out these wild Negan, Maggie, Rick, Carol, Daryl, and Michonne dragons. The Michonne dragon even has a sword. Can't tell you how much I love that design. Each dragon has their own primary element, making them completely unique. And their special bunker attack gives them extra power in a PvP fight. Do you like to root for the villain? Well, the Negan dragon is already available in Dragon City right now. This dragon's primary element is happy, but oh, he'll make you weep with his baseball bat, Lucille. I've heard off the record that Lucille is very thirsty. Get the Negan, Maggie, Rick, and Carol dragons through the offers or the breeding island as they arrive in-game, and master the Michonne quest to get the awesome sword-wielding Michonne dragon. If you get all 5, you'll get the Daryl dragon for free. To collect all the Walking Dead dragons, download Dragon City by clicking the link in the description or scan the QR code right here and get a special free starter pack with 15,000 food, 30,000 gold, and the epic zombie nature dragon. All right, back to the content. Please believe me when I tell you that I really didn't want to involve myself in this discussion from the get-go. Originally just pointing out on Twitter that I think the ubiquity of the gun at least maybe warrants at least a discussion, exact words by the way, and that my overall displeasure that poor Salt was getting dragged for just laying out his opinion, which I thought was fairly well presented by the way. If you've never been on Twitter before, first of all, just don't. If you've gone this long without doing it, just don't sign up. I'm serious about that. But I don't really know how to describe the temptation of getting sucked into an argument that you know is going to be nothing but terrible for you, especially if you're a quote content creator. Did you ever see that SNL sketch where they compare Kellyanne Conway to the clown from It, throwing out wild takes and blatantly baiting people to get dragged down into the sewer with her? It's kind of like that, if that makes any sense. Anyway, SaltAgreppo, current 3 times world's first rating champion, went on to list a bunch of theoretical ways how Divinity could be nerfed. People did not like this. I've seen a wild array of replies, maybe 90% that are just pure emotional backlash in the form of tweeting right from the hip, and maybe 10-ish% that actually get into the nitty-gritty of how a Divinity nerf would affect not necessarily the game, but the player base, which I think might be looking at the situation the wrong way. More on that in a minute. Datto already has an excellent video covering this exact topic, and while he waited a very long time into his video to weigh in on his thoughts on Divinity, smart move by the way, I, on the other hand, will just come right out with my thoughts. Common sense be damned. I think that the mere existence of Divinity as a weapon has drastically altered the way that Bungie creates and designs raids and hard PvE content in general. So much, in fact, that I feel that they may have painted themselves into a corner. What we have here is a weapon so strong and so effective that it becomes almost mandatory on any raid team, day 1 or not. In fact, pretty much the only reason any team would willingly not go into a raid equipped with Divinity is because either A, they're doing some kind of ridiculous challenge where they hard limit their loadout in some way, or far more likely, B, they don't have the gun. Pretty much every time I join a raid group these days and we get into loadout talk, the first question almost each and every time is, all right, who's on div? It has become a mandatory role in endgame PvE content, and while you certainly can beat challenging content without it, why would you? It provides a 30% debuff, aka the strongest tier of debuff available in the game, and it gives an Omega generous crit bubble, making it near impossible to miss shots on a raid boss, target, whatever. By the way, just in case anyone out there is now rage typing their manifesto on why I'm an elitist scumbag creator looking to make things harder for the casual player, I'd like to remind you, nowhere have I yet said that I think Divinity should be hard nerfed. But with that in mind, I would like to ask you a question. If any weapon or tactic becomes so strong that it essentially becomes close to mandatory or the instant go-to, don't even think about it option, does it at the very least deserve to be discussed? Not necessarily nerfed, but discussed or examined under a microscope by the dev team. If you answered no to that question, I gotta be honest, I think you're being a bit silly. One of the replies that I foolishly felt compelled to reply to on Twitter was from the "if you think it's so good, just don't use it" crowd, which has been flying around a lot lately. And right here, I feel where you're coming from, but I also feel as if there's a fundamental misunderstanding of the point I'm trying to get across. Remember earlier, I mentioned I was worried that Bungie may have painted themselves into a corner with Divinity? From here until the end of Destiny, whenever the hell that is, Bungie, when designing a new or revamped raid, now has to consider how powerful we are as Guardians, knowing the tools that we have at our disposal. Back when I was preparing for the day one raid race on Kingsfall, I, like many people, found myself watching an old raid guide from my buddy Dado. If you don't know who that is, hi, welcome to the Destiny community. For the love of God, get out now. After experiencing the D2 version of the War Priest encounter and then going back and re-watching Dado's team fight the D1 War Priest, Jesus Christ, man, the difference. Damaging the War Priest with a Titan hammer, a sniper rifle, a freaking auto rifle at times. Fast forward to D2, excluding Touch of Malice, which is a godly primary weapon straight from the dick of Zeus. You are going into that fight with power weapons ablazing, so hard to the point where you're very likely going to run out of power ammo fast, and after that, it's scavenging time. My point is that Bungie literally has to design these new encounters knowing full well how good our damage output is now, thanks in part to weapons like Divinity. And I can only imagine that when they sit down to create a new or revamped raid encounter, they have to, at minimum, octuple the boss's health bar to make sure they have a fighting chance at withstanding the savage beating we're about to unleash upon them.
Hey Fallout, if you nerf Divinity, you're gonna be making content harder for all the casual players. Not everyone plays this game for a living like you.
I know that, and that's why, for now at least, I don't think Bungie should nerf Divinity. I'm being honest at this point where I say, truthfully, I don't even know if they can. It's become such a vital tool in our arsenal that pulling it out right now would topple everything all over like a Jenga tower. They definitely shouldn't do it, not unless Bungie can go back in and manually lower the health pool of every single raid boss in the game as well. If we lose Divinity, we lose the ability to easily and fiercely smack down bosses with shockingly high damage phases. And that's kind of my point. I don't think we should remove or nerf Divinity to make things more challenging, but I'm also absolutely sad that the gun is so good it's kind of become a mandatory staple to the point where every raid boss needs to be Godzilla level chonky to compensate. Because we have the ability to output so much damage, and again, while not really needing to aim too much, it turns into a war of escalation between us and the D2 design team. We can make the target take an extra 30% damage and only need to aim well enough to hit a gigantic blue bubble, and Bungie, in turn, must now strike back by giving raid bosses the level of health that they have. On day one Kingsfall, if you didn't both equip multiple Aeon Exotics to overflow yourselves with heavy ammo and pair that together with a Divinity user on your team, there is a high chance that you did not get beyond that massive damage check. I'm not a bored content creator looking for new ways to challenge and torture myself. Lord knows I have my Twitch chat to help me out with that. I just worry about how Divinity is shaping the future of how PvE content is designed, that's all. I worry about an extreme lack of variety in endgame fireteam loadout structure, especially for a weapon that most new players are going to have a real difficult time getting. However, I gotta give credit where it's due. I can only imagine that the folks at Bungie probably designed the vast majority of the Rolk encounter in Vow of the Disciple around Divinity, which, IMO, is a raid encounter done right. Rather than planting your feet in a well like we always do, you have to move around to avoid getting kicked in the face. If Divinity didn't exist, this encounter would be way harder. But then you kind of have a double-edged sword vibe going on. I mean, yeah, Divinity makes the encounter more doable for the average raider, but at the same time, you're also making the gun even more mandatory. I think in a perfect world, we'd have more debuff options that even come close to holding a candle to the power that Divinity currently wields. I mean, yeah, in theory, the Hunter Tether does a similar job, a ranged 30% debuff to the enemy. But come on, you kidding me? These days, Divinity kicks Tether in the crotch. Tether has a limited time duration and has a several minute cooldown period, while Divinity can be maintained as long as you have special ammo. At the end of the day, I literally want whatever is best for the community at large. If that means Divinity sticks around untouched in its current form, fine, so be it. But I do think if that is the case, we'd need to think about maybe getting more effective debuff options that can compete with Big Bad Div. I'd also like to see more creative ways of dealing big damage in raid-like activities. Remember in D1 Kingsfall when our only method of dealing damage to Oryx was by detonating the taken blights themselves? I know this is a huge hot take because a lot of players do not remember that mechanic very fondly, but I think at the very least it was a creative and unique way of fighting a boss. Do I want all raid mechanics to lean that way moving forward? No, but I do like the idea of toying with ways to raid that don't lean hard into always needing a weapon like Divinity. And for the love of God, when people share feedback in a constructive way on social media, even if you disagree with it, can you fucking pump the brakes a little bit on how you reply or react? I'm just saying, if I had a goddamn nickel for every time I heard someone saying wholeheartedly on Twitter that Bungie only listens to content creators, I wouldn't need to freaking run ads on this channel anymore. The vast majority of streamers I know were gobsmacked and very against the aerial combat changes, against the slide nerf, against the addition of SBMM to quick play, against DR and PvP, and the list goes on, but I digress. Anyway, please come to my Twitch chat and tell me what a bag of shit I am for even suggesting we have a discussion about a weapon that is so ingrained in the meta that it's become the new, quote, must-have Gallarhorn. Again, download Dragon City by clicking the link in the video description or scan the QR code shown right here to get that free starter pack and the epic zombie nature dragon. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on stream.